some questions. How you doing today, Joan?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. That's good. All right, we'll get into it. So, your family moved onto the island in around 1947, 1948, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And before you guys lived on the island, your father was in the Marines,
Yes.
and is that how he got the gig to go to Alcatraz, or do you know how that all became about?
I think it had a lot to do with it because they wanted people that were tough, and Marines are tough, and they wanted tough men to deal with the prisoners.
Okay. Okay. Well, there was about 60 families at any given time living, around 60-ish families living on the island with kids and whatnot. Did that fill the apartment buildings that you guys lived in,
Yes.
or were there still open apartments?
Well, there might have been an open apartment here and there because people moved on and off. But yeah, most of the apartments were full.
Okay. Did most of the people that most did the guards have to live on the island?
No, I think the officers um, had to live there. I'm not sure about that, but there were a lot of guards that lived in Alcatraz. I mean, lived in San Francisco and took the boat back and forth.
Okay. But you guys never lived in Alcatraz. You guys never lived in San Francisco. You guys always lived on the island.
Yes.
Okay. Growing up, did you have kids your age? Your
Not not very often. There weren't a lot of kids my age. And my older sisters had kids their age. But a couple of times there were kids my age, but their families didn't stay on the island very long.
when you say they didn't stay on the island, they just their dad got transferred,
No, I don't know
or they
that.
just
I don't know why, but for some reason they didn't stay but only a few months and then they moved. I don't know. Their dad changed jobs. I have no idea. Maybe the wives were scared. That's
could
what I
be.
think. That maybe some of the wives were scared of raising their kids there.
Okay. What were some of the rules for the kids that lived on the island and the families that lived on the island?
Well, the biggest rule was don't go anywhere where you can't be seen. We couldn't go behind the apartment buildings. We couldn't go anywhere where a tower guard couldn't see us.
And Tower Guard could see what, approximately 90% of the island, or what would you say?
I don't know, a lot, um, probably about 100% because they had to watch it. They had to watch everywhere.
Okay. What do you think the rule that was most broken from you
For
kids?
me, for me, it was being where I wasn't supposed to be. I would go, had to realize there wasn't anybody my age to play with. And so I would go and find these places to hide and see how long it would take for someone to come and tell me to get out of there and go home. That's what I did.
So would you say that'd be your favorite game you played on the island?
That was my favorite thing when I was by myself. But we did a lot of roller skating. We only had cement because it had been a army base and it had parade grounds, and there was a little bit of grass on the island, but we were not allowed to be on it. And so we had a lot of cement and we played a lot of roller derby and we played just roller skating.
Could you guys play cops and robbers on the island?
No, we played prisoners and guards.
Prisoners and guards?
Yeah.
And you were allowed to do that just because because the guards didn't have guns, or what was the reason between that? But
I don't know if anybody ever said anything. That's where we lived, where there were prisoners and guards. So that's what we played. We couldn't
could
have toy guns. We couldn't have toy knives. We couldn't have anything that resembled a weapon. We couldn't even have caps because the inmates could get the caps and get a little bit of gunpowder that was in them and make weapons. So we used our fingers for guns or a stick. We didn't have very many trees, so we didn't have very many sticks. But
Okay. Tell us about your daily schedule. What would it be like after you woke up, got dressed, um, and so forth and so forth?
well, I can just say for myself, my sisters had a different schedule, but I had to be up. My sisters and my mother left on the 7 o'clock boat because their school started earlier and my mother was working. So we get up. I have to get dressed before they left because I couldn't button the buttons in the back of my dress by myself. And then they left, and I made breakfast. I made my lunch for school. I watched Captain Kangaroo. And when Tom Terrific, one of the cartoons, came on, then I knew it was time to go down the boat because there were whistles for the boat. There was a whistle that said in 10 minutes, the boat dock is going to be open. So when you heard that whistle, you went down by the dock. And there was a fence, and they had to have the count correct both on the dock and in the prison. And if it was correct, they blew another whistle, and then the gate opened, and you could go down to the dock. And you waited maybe 10 minutes before the boat loaded, and then you were gone. You went to school. We either took the city bus to school or walked, depending on the weather and how close our school was. And then we'd come home from school, get on the boat, I would immediately after I got off the boat, I would run up the big stairs so I could be first in line to get the mail. Because the 4 o'clock boat that we came home from school on also had the mail. And then I'd go home and stayed in the house until my mom or my dad got home.
What kind of mail would you be wanting? Just the family mail, or
Yeah,
was there
the
mail
family
that you
mail.
would be looking
Just
for?
any, just like the mail you get now. Just regular mail. We got catalogs, we got advertisements, we got letters.
Could you have friends stay the night?
Not on Alcatraz. I
Could
never
you stay the
did.
night at your friend's house?
No, I never did.
No. Would because your parents just didn't trust them, or just it just wasn't a thing?
Well, I know the reason they didn't come to my house to Alcatraz because one thing their parents had to pass a background check, and in the 50s, nobody wanted to do a background check. Now you have to do a background check every time you turn around, but the parents didn't want to do a background check, so they just said no, their kid couldn't come, and I don't know if I was ever invited. I don't remember if I was ever invited to spend the night at someone's house.
When you guys when you went to school in San Francisco, if you guys were to walk, would you guys ever get into any mischievous trouble, or would people know that you guys were Alcatraz kids, or
Oh, I think a lot
what
of
was
people
it
knew
like?
we were Alcatraz kids because we usually walked in a group, and sometimes on the way home we play Ding Door Dash,
Mm-hmm.
and they had these big apartment buildings, and each apartment had a buzzer, and so we'd press the buzzer and we'd say something stupid, and then we'd run. And if it was a big apartment building, we'd be off of the block before people could come downstairs. But I think a lot of people knew it was Alcatraz kids.
How did you guys get your food there? Did you guys bring food back
Yeah,
from San Francisco, or was your most of your shopping there on the island?
no, that my folks went to San Francisco to shop. Everybody went to San Francisco and shop. We had a little convenience store. It was called the Canteen, and it just had canned goods. It had bologna and salami and just a little bit of everything. But most of the food was brought over on the boat.
Okay. Um, you you were on the cover of a magazine called Colliers. They
Right.
did a story about children living on the island. Couple questions. One, how did you get picked? Two, did you guys just send in a picture? Three, did your sisters get jealous that you got picked and not them? And we'll go from there.
Well, I don't know how the picture got picked. I say it's because I was the cutest. My sisters have different point of view, so you can ask them. Um, the Collier's magazine wanted to do a feature on the prison, and the federal government said no. So then they said they wanted to do a feature on the guards, and the federal government said no. So then they said they wanted to do it on the kids, and the federal government said that was okay. And if you notice on the magazine, I'm standing in front of a guard, in front of a tower, but the guard's back is turned because they didn't want anyone to know what the guards look like in case there was, somebody on the outside trying to get their prisoner relative or friend out. They're very careful of keeping identities. Um,
Do you know of any other pictures that were possibly considered to be the cover, or was it just your picture?
there was one of a little boy. I think he was about a year younger than me, and we had chain link fence all around the areas where we could go, and he's looking through the fence. And I think that one was a contender. And that picture is at the very beginning of the article inside the magazine.
Okay. Okay. Did your dad talk about after you moved from Alcatraz in 1960? You moved to another penitentiary, Leavenworth,
Right?
another pretty contiguous penitentiary. Still to this day,
Yeah.
it's had some pretty famous people. Um, did your dad ever talk about um his time on the island after he was retired, or anything? I know that men didn't talk about things back then, and society was kind of different. But did he ever mention anything, any stories or anything?
My dad never mentioned anything. We found out well, the other kids' parents didn't talk about it either, but every once in a while they would say something that they heard their parents say. Um, Even when we moved to Leavenworth, my dad never talked about the prison, never talked about it at all. Um, all we knew was that he went to work at such and such a time and came home at such and such a time. Mm.
Do you think he did that because he didn't want you to see possibly how cruel the world could be back then, or do you think that, or do you have another opinion of why he might have not talked about it?
I think he just wanted to protect us. He didn't think we
Okay.
needed to know that kind of stuff. I know one time we had a lesson in school about drugs. This was before drugs were really big. And I had said something, and he gave me an example of a prisoner that had used drugs and his mind was not working very well. He gave me a picture of
Do
that.
you remember the prisoner that he might have referred?
Oh, I had no idea. He would never have
He,
said.
he
And
didn't
one
name him
time,
by name.
yeah, one time when we were in Leavenworth, there was a prisoner, and I don't remember his name. My sisters would, and he had been a prisoner on Alcatraz. And then when Alcatraz closed, he was transferred to the prison at Leavenworth, and he was going to be released after like 30 or 40 years. And he had never seen a grocery store because when he went to prison, they only had the butcher store, the baker store, and all the individual stores. He had never seen a regular telephone. He'd never seen a regular camera, just little things like that. Because the magazines that the prisoners got, they tore out the advertisements because they didn't want them to get acclimated to the real world. And he had that inmate come and have supper with us one Sunday night. And he told us he was in a gang that robbed banks. And he told us how you plan uh, bank robbery. He was the driver of the getaway car, and he told us how you drove the route many different ways. So if you were being chased, you could have a option of which way to turn. And then my dad took him out and showed him the grocery store and other things so that he would have a little idea what the world was like when he was released.
So in 1960 was before the big break.
Yes.
Did you while you're on the island between when you were born in 1959
49.
and 49, I'm
Yes.
sorry, 49. Um, did you ever experience a break? Was there ever a false alarm, or was there ever a break?
I don't know if there was ever a false alarm, but we were coming home from school one day and the sirens were blaring. Um, and the sirens were loud. If you live in tornado country, they were like a tornado siren, um, loud. And we were just getting off of the boat, and we were coming up. There's stairs everywhere on the island because it was level. Coming up some stairs, and there were guards saying, "Get to your house, get to your house." And my oldest sister had been homesick that day, and we went in the house. And then pretty soon, an officer came and got us and took us to another house. Our mother was at work, so we were there by ourselves. They came and took us to another house, and there were several families in that other house. And I don't think there were any other kids. I don't remember that, but they had all the families in just a few houses so that they could guard them. And they found one of the inmates that night while they were searching, and they found the other one several weeks later. He had drowned and he had washed up, and they identified him because he had his number on his belt buckle on his shirt. They identified him by his number. But the next morning after that, my grandparents came. They lived about an hour away from San Francisco, and they came and picked us up when we got on the boat to go to school. And they picked us up, and we got to spend about 2 weeks on vacation at our grandparents' house until our dad thought it was safe for us to come home. And that I remember I was sitting on the sofa, which was by the window, and the cottage that we were in was built on a cliff. And I remember scooting down so my head was below the top of the sofa because I didn't want an inmate to come up through the window and grab me and take me hostage. And that's really all I remember about it.
What did your mother do? You said your mother was at work. What kind of work did she do at that time?
One time she was working for a bank, and the other time, and that she was working for a elevator company.
Um, so 19 that happened. What when do you think that break would have happened? When do you think that was?
Maybe 1957, 56, somewhere around there.
Okay. Um, do you remember if they, other than the one inmate that you said they found in the water, was there any other people they found?
Well, there were two inmates, and they had taken the guard. They were on trash duty, and they had taken the guard that was with them and tied him up and stuck him behind a bush. Well, they found him first, and then the other one was hiding in a cave. There were caves along the bottom of the island, and they found him hiding in a cave. And so they got him that night or the end of the day.
So then fast forward 1960, you guys moved to Leavenworth.
Yes.
Um, in the middle of Kansas, in the middle of the United States. And you go from an island with no grass and just some concrete
And a
to
fence around us.
Kansas, where probably a lot of grass, can't see the sea, can probably do a lot of things that you were never able to do on Leavenworth. How was that? Did How was that feeling?
It was like freedom. We could go outside and play. I got to have people come and spend the night. I got to ride my bike to school. I'd ride my bike home for lunch. I got to be in Girl Scouts. I couldn't be in Girl Scouts or Brownies before because of the bus schedule, the boat schedule. And I had friends that I could go over to their houses and they could come to my house. And it was just so wonderful.
Do you think do you think your parents enjoyed Leavenworth as much as the kids did?
I don't know. Probably my mother did. She didn't drive when we lived in California on Alcatraz, but she got her driver's license when we moved to Kansas. And yeah, she could go and call up some friends and say, "Hey, come over, let's play cards." And they could go to the store, whenever they wanted to. And when us girls were old enough to drive, they could send us on errands. And it was just, it was like being in prison and then being out. We didn't have any fences around us.
What do you did you ever talk to your mom about her perspective of living on the island? Did she enjoy it? Did she hate it? Did she ever say?
I never talked to her about that. My sisters probably have a better viewpoint of that.
Um as we're gonna wrap up this interview here, um the Indians got it after the penitentiary closed in 1963. Um what do you think about the rumors of President Trump wanting to reopen the prison?
I think it's a joke.
A joke?
They would have to somehow get water because we had our water brought over on a barge twice a week. And in the 50s, they just let the sewage go into the bay. You can't do that now, so they'd have to build a sewage plant. And most of the buildings are falling apart from just um, being in the salty air around the bay. There'd have to be a lot of repairs. It would cost a lot of money. I think that's just a joke.
Okay, well, let's end this out with a positive note. What is probably your best memory of Alcatraz? What would you say? Um, if somebody was to ask you your favorite memory that bring you the most joy, what would you say?
It was the parties. We always had these big parties for Halloween and Christmas, and we had movies that had parties. Um, and everyone on the island would go. And at Christmas, we'd have Santa Claus, and he'd have presents for us. And, it was outside of the gate. They had a building called the Social Hall. It was outside of the gate, so we got to go outside of the gate and do something. And that was always fun. The parties. They try to make our life have a little bit of happiness.
Nice, nice. Well, hey, I appreciate your time coming on to the bar talk and talking to me and everybody else that's gonna watch this about your time on Alcatraz, and just appreciate your cooperation.
Well, you're welcome.